But I tell you what, this is going to remain with me for a long time. You're a pack of arseholes.
He had just won the most famous race in Australian touring car racing, and the crowd was booing him. Why would a country boo one of its own champions? Because of the car he was driving. A car that didn't cheat. A car that wasn't breaking the rules. A car that simply kept winning. 29 races from 29 starts in the Japanese Touring Car Championship. A victory at the Bathurst 1000. And as the GTR kept winning, Australia's touring car rules were about to change. For 1993, Australia's top touring car category moved away from Group A and adopted a new 5-liter V8 formula, ending the era of turbocharged Group A cars in the championship. And the car at the center of all this was the Nissan Skyline GT-R, the car Australia called Godzilla. To understand why this car caused so much anger, you have to understand what Nissan had created. It's 1989. Nissan revives a name that had been dead for 16 years. The Skyline GT-R. But this wasn't simply a new performance sedan. Nissan developed the R32 with Motorsport firmly in mind. Under the hood, a 2.6-liter twin-turbocharged inline-six. Officially, Japanese manufacturers quoted around 280 horsepower because of the country's voluntary power agreement. But in racing trim, the engine could produce well over 500 horsepower. The GTR had Nissan's ATTESA E-TS all-wheel drive system, which could send torque to the front wheels when extra traction was needed. It also had HICAS 4-wheel steering, helping the car respond more sharply and remain stable at high speed. The goal was simple: build better cars than the competition. In July 1989, Australian magazine Wheels tested the new Skyline GT-R. They gave it a nickname that would follow the car for decades: Godzilla, the Japanese monster. And Godzilla quickly showed Australia why the name fit. In 1991, Jim Richards and Mark Skaife took the GTR to victory at the Bathurst 1000. It was a huge moment. Bathurst wasn't just another race. Mount Panorama was sacred ground in Australian motorsport. For decades, Holden and Ford had dominated the event with big, powerful rear-wheel drive touring cars. And now, a Japanese turbocharged all-wheel drive sedan had come to their mountain and beaten them. This wasn't just another competitor. It represented a completely different approach to touring car racing. Instead of relying on a large, naturally aspirated V8 and rear-wheel drive, Nissan had brought sophisticated turbocharging, all-wheel drive, and advanced electronics. And it worked. In 1992, Australia's governing body, CAMS, introduced additional restrictions on the GTR, including extra weight and turbocharger pop-off valves designed to limit boost. The GTR was being handicapped, but even that wasn't enough. Mark Skaife won the 1992 Australian Touring Car Championship. Then came Bathurst, and this is where the story gets strange. The 1992 Bathurst 1000 was hit by terrible weather. Rain turned Mount Panorama into chaos. Cars were spinning everywhere, visibility collapsed, and Jim Richards was still fighting for the lead. Then disaster struck. Richards hit the wall at the cutting. The race was eventually red flagged and stopped early. Under the regulations, the result was determined from the last completed lap, and the GTR was still ahead. Jim Richards was declared the winner. But the crowd wasn't celebrating. They were furious. Ford fans, Holden fans, thousands of people who had watched their favorite drivers lose to this Japanese monster all season. The booing started before Richards even reached the podium. It got louder as he accepted the trophy. Then the microphone came down. Richards turned toward the crowd and delivered one of the most famous speeches in Australian motorsport history. But what most of the crowd didn't know was what Richards himself had just learned. Denny Hulme, the 1967 Formula One world champion and a close friend of Richards, had suffered a fatal heart attack during the race while driving his own car. Richards had found out only moments before stepping onto the podium, so he was standing there with thousands of people booing him while he was still processing the death of his friend. But behind the scenes, something much bigger was happening. The era of Group A in Australian touring cars was coming to an end. For 1993, the championship adopted a new formula built around 5-liter naturally aspirated V8s. The turbocharged, all-wheel drive Group A cars were no longer allowed in the top class. The GTR's time in Australian touring car racing was over. Was the new formula created specifically to remove the Skyline? The historical record doesn't support saying that as a simple fact. There were broader reasons for the change, but the timing was impossible to ignore. The car that had dominated Australian touring cars was suddenly no longer part of the championship. A road-going production car had become so difficult to beat that the championship moved in a completely different direction. Not because the GTR had cheated, not because it had broken the rules, but because beating it had become extremely difficult. And taking it out of the championship only made the legend bigger. The R32 was followed by the R33 and R34. The GTR was no longer just a racing car. It had become a cultural icon, and eventually R32 GTR returned to Mount Panorama for heritage events. This time, the crowd wasn't booing. The booing had become a famous part of the car's history. The Bathurst victory had become legendary, and the car that once made Australian fans angry had become one of the most respected Japanese performance cars in the world. So next time you see an R32 GTR, remember what you're looking at. Not just a JDM icon, not just a fast Nissan, but the car that went undefeated for 29 races in Japan. The car that conquered Bathurst. The car that survived extra weight, boost restrictions, terrible weather, and thousands of angry fans. And the car that became a symbol of one of the biggest changes in Australian motorsport history. They called it Godzilla. And for a brief, glorious moment, the monster truly ruled the mountain.